This past week, the Stacks family went on a mini vacation down by the ocean. I was getting ready to do a new video about a very unorthodox leatherworking tool that I found while I was on my vacation. Then this happened. You've got to be kidding me. I had just heard some of the worst beginning leathercraft advice from an expert. Then it happened again. So, I'm going to give you the breakdown, the lowdown, and all the information. Today, I'm going to expose the fallacies that are out there on the interwebs about beginner leather crafting. Welcome to Big Stack Small Workshop. Before I get into the bad advice, I'd like to take a few moments. There was some really good advice out there for beginner leather crafters, and I want to share these with you. There's a lot of advice in this video, but it's not a good idea to skip around. I'm going to be covering a lot of different things and busting a lot of different myths. You might miss something that could be detrimental to your experience as a beginning leather crafter, and I wouldn't want that to happen. Tip number one, don't buy tools you don't need. When it comes to leatherworking, most of your basics can be done with a knife, a mallet, some punches, and maybe a little sandpaper. And a lot of times, hardware comes with its own tools. So if you buy a set of rivets or you buy a set of snaps, they're going to come with their own setting tools. They even have the little anvils that go inside there. Really, to make basic leather projects, all you need is basic tools. When you're ready to upgrade your leatherworking, that's when you upgrade your tools. It's a rite of passage to start with less expensive tools. Number two, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. Mistakes happen to everyone. I guarantee you the best leather workers out there made a lot of mistakes when they started leatherworking. Practice, practice, practice. Start off with simple projects, then work up to more advanced ones. Learn to master the basic techniques first. Then when you have those down real easy, level up. Buy new tools. Start a new project. Anytime you're going to buy new tools, you need to practice with them as well. I can't tell you the amount of times that I tried to set copper rivets before I had the process down, and I still don't have it perfected, but I am definitely a lot better now than I was before. I'll get to the next tip in just a minute, but if you're enjoying this video, please hit that like button so YouTube can share it with more people just like you. Number three, use a hard surface for stamping and tooling. I use a stainless steel workbench, but before that, I did use a granite slab to do a lot of setting. And my grandfather's anvil is still my go-to surface whenever I'm setting rivets or snaps. Stamping on a plain wood surface is not really a good idea. You'll get a lot of vibration. If you don't have a lot of money, you can go to one of your kitchen emporiums or places that sell kitchen counters and make a deal with them for one of their sink cutouts. And it'll be large enough to do any tooling or stamping in addition to any rivet setting that you want to do. Now that we've covered a few nuggets of good advice, I'm going to give you the bad advice. And this isn't for sensitive ears. So if there are young children around, make them cover up. Just say, earmuffs. The first bad piece of advice I heard was start with a sheet of plywood. Plywood is going to dull your blade so fast that it's going to frustrate you. Frustration equals stress. And if you're stressed out, there's no way you're going to continue leatherworking. You could start with a piece of plywood for maybe one or two projects, but I would really suggest investing in a cutting mat. Cutting mats are inexpensive, and they're designed to take cuts from a blade without dulling it. Using a piece of plywood is okay for one or two projects, but I would seriously suggest that all leather crafters get a cutting mat fairly early on in their leather working journey. This video is sponsored by... Today's video is sponsored by Olive Miracle Leave-In Conditioner. Great for her hair, but great for your beard as well. Okay, so Olive Miracle is not the sponsor of my video, but I love that product. I use it in my beard every single day. It's really inexpensive and it does a great job. The next piece of advice really wasn't bad advice, but you do need to be careful and pay attention to what's going on because it could mean that there's a bigger problem. Don't muscle your knife through the cut. Take multiple passes. I totally agree. you don't want to muscle through the cut. But you do need to be careful. Always let your blade do the work for you. Taking multiple passes on thick leather is okay, but if you find that you're taking too many passes to get the cut, then your blade is probably dull. When you try to force your cuts can be irregular or off, or worst of all, you can end up cutting yourself. The most dangerous knife is a dull knife, and if you find that you're taking too many passes, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and sharpen your blade, or if you're like me and use an X-Acto knife, go ahead and replace that blade. And the price of a new blade is not worth frustrating yourself, or even worse, cutting yourself when you're doing your projects. Now here's one that could probably be debated, but I'm going to stick to my guns. Just wet the leather and stamp it. You always want to wet your leather before you stamp it or tool it. However, you definitely want to wait for that water to soak into the leather. I saw someone take a wet sponge, run it over their leather, and within 5 seconds, they were stamping it. Literally 5 seconds. You definitely want to make sure that your water soaks into the leather. The goal with stamping or tooling is to compress the leather. If you only wait 5 seconds, there's a good chance that you're going to end up tearing your leather. I usually wet my leather really good, then give it a few minutes to soak in before I stamp it or tool it. If you only wait 5 seconds, there's a good chance you're going to end up tearing the surface of the leather, and your tooling and your stamping is going to look like garbage. Now here's some really bad advice that I heard, so we definitely want to make sure there's no young ears listening. Earmuffs. Don't waste your time with cheap Hobby Lobby leather. Buy the expensive stuff. Well, obviously it's going to be much easier and enjoyable to work with expensive leather if you can afford it. When you first got your license, did you buy the most expensive and exotic car you could find? You think that every mechanic out there has started with a set of snap-on tools? I do a lot of woodworking, and I would never suggest for a new woodworker to build their first projects with unsteamed walnut or spalted maple. When you're starting out, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Remember, don't be afraid to fail. But failing with expensive leather is going to do nothing but stress you out. And it's much easier to find cheap leather than it is to order expensive leather online and wait a couple of days for it to be shipped to your house. It's okay to start small. You're going to screw up. You're going to get frustrated, and that's all right. It is okay to do those things. But if you're doing it with expensive leather, you're going to get even more frustrated. You're going to stress yourself out, and you're going to probably give up on leatherworking. It's better to screw up on inexpensive and cheap leather because it's easier to replace. Now, you don't want to buy just any leather that's out there. You definitely want to stick to veg tanned or chrome tanned. What you don't want to do is use genuine leather. Genuine leather is just a bunch of scraps glued together and then painted to look like real leather. It's the $5 belts and wallets that you see in Walmart. That leather is genuine. Genuinely bad, genuinely probably going to crack, genuinely not good leather. So I personally don't advise you get Horween or Wicked and Craig or Herman Oak leather to get started. I really think you should start with the basic leather you can find. Once you're more comfortable with your leather work, then you can upgrade to nicer leather, especially if you're making gifts for someone. Just like it's a rite of passage to start with less expensive tools, it's also a rite of passage to start with less expensive leather. And the last piece of advice that I heard that was bad was, get inspired, but don't copy anyone. Well, you're just starting out. It's okay. Copy people. Do exactly what they do. That's how you learn. Copy and practice. Practice and copy. Copy and practice. Practice and copy. Imitate. It's okay. Look at what people are doing. Look at how they're doing it. Why are they doing these things? You're not going to understand until you do it yourself. Now, I'm not saying sell anything unique and claim it as your own ideas, but how many people you think out there started with an original idea? Do you think Google was the first search engine? You think that Ford had the first automobile? Feel free to use my free leather templates. You can make the cable keeper, the strap keychain, or the dresser valet. Make as many and sell as many as you want. I give you permission to do that. As a matter of fact, I've got a Halloween project that I want to show you. And I'm going to provide a free pattern for that as well, along with the free projects that I did last week. You can click right here to get those free patterns. So, let's get started. Print out your template on a piece of heavy cardstock. or print it on a regular sheet of paper and glue it to the back of a piece of cardboard, like from a cereal box. Cut your template out, and don't forget to cut out the eyes and mouth. You can trace your template onto the leather, either using a scratch-all, ice pick, or I like to use a leather pen. Cut your jack-o'-lantern out, and don't forget to cut out the eyes and mouth. Then punch holes so you can insert a key ring. If you have any beginning leathercraft myths that I didn't cover, I'd love to hear about them. Please drop me a comment down below. Remember, Big Stacks grows, Big Stacks builds, and Big Stacks makes. If you want to see me build the other 3 projects from the free template package, click on this link right here.